used to be, a decade or more ago, and it's certainly the case for Liberty. I mean, you've got to get yourself a quarterback, and Liberty's seen another one in Michael Merdinger since we talked last week that's gone into the portal, and so that room's razor thin right now. Just the two Ethans, Vasco and Hauk, and Vasco is going to be out for 5 or 6 months due to shoulder surgery. That are currently on the roster, as well as the incoming true freshman Jake and Davis. So we heard Coach Towell talk about how you're going to need at least one and probably two and maybe three portal quarterbacks now at that position. But Liberty's got to find that guy. I think we saw what this team looks like behind Vasco, and obviously he had some injuries throughout the season that held him back a little bit from his ceiling, but. Coach Chadwell, as we talked about again last week, he's pretty much fighting for his job in 2026. So he's got to make sure he figures out that quarterback spot. That's, priority 1, 2, and 3 for him going into the offseason.
No doubt it is for the Liberty Flames. And my biggest have your cake and eat it too part of the TroastLaw.com fast take that I was referencing earlier, John, is the idea that you're upset that all these players are entering. I'm not saying you. I'm saying Liberty fans that I'm sure at JC Manson or at A Sea of Red on Twitter. But being upset that these guys are entering the portal, including 2 quarterbacks, plus the medical retirement of Ryan Berger, plus the long-term injury that'll keep him out through spring practice with Ethan Vasco. You're upset that this is all happening, but yet we saw what the Liberty quarterback room looked like. Vasco, you could convince me he wasn't where you would expect because of the shoulder injury impacting his overall skill set. But you got to have depth around him, right?
Oh, yeah, you definitely do. And that's why losing a guy like Merdinger kind of hurts a little bit because, that was your backup quarterback this year. He stepped in and started 2 games and looked pretty good in that, regular season finale against Kennesaw State. And certainly as a backup guy coming back next year that you would feel confident in if he had to step in. But he's gone, and so now it's do you trust in Vasco to first of all be healthy, and then if he's not your starter, to be your backup? Will he stick around for the entire season, taking that reduced role, or Ethan Hauk, who was a true freshman, and we saw what he did in limited action earlier in the season, primarily against GMU and ODU. Do you trust what you have in him to be able to be that backup? So I would expect. First of all, Liberty's got to figure out their starter, right? I mean, we know that's their most important thing. And then, do you think Vasco can be your backup if that's what you choose to do is get somebody that ends up beating out Vasco and Hauk in the quarterback competition battle? But yeah, that's where I think losing a guy like Merdinger really hurts because at the least, he's a capable backup, and even somebody that could have pushed whoever Liberty brings in the spring for that starting job.
Jon Manson, he's at JC Manson, Twitter, A Sea of Red as well on Twitter, or just .com to keep up with his work. We, as you know, are at Fastlane, Edlane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you listen to podcasts, and TJ_Wilkerson8 for TJ as well. John, we've touched on the Liberty Flames right now when it comes to the transfer portal. The next time we speak with you will be in the new year, but after the portal opens on January the 2nd. How quickly do you expect activity to transpire? Maybe not fully with the Flames because they're lower down on the proverbial college football pecking order, but how quickly do you expect activity to start in terms of crystallizing how the Flames will look next year?
Yeah, this is the first time we've had this, singular transfer portal in the last, handful of years. And so it's different. Like, usually you're right here in the midst of the last half of December, you're in your first transfer portal and you're bringing in guys on visits and getting commitments and things like that. But now you've got, upwards of a month of guys announcing their intentions to go into the portal when it does open on January 2nd. So I would imagine that first weekend of January is just going to be a plethora of activity all across college football landscape, from visits and commitments and even new guys entering the portal that haven't announced yet as well too. And I don't think it'd be any different for Liberty. I would expect them to have a group of visitors lined up for that first week. And right now, and we're tracking it all at ASeaRed.com, Liberty's got 79 players on the roster. So that's including their freshman class that's incoming that were just signed in the early signing period a couple weeks ago. So I mean, you've got room for 25 plus players currently, and I would expect that number to increase as more and more guys go into the portal. So, I mean, that's a lot of guys to bring in, and you just have this one portal window. It's not like you can, come back in the spring and add more to your roster. Now, granted, that's just the January 2nd to 16th, as you know. Ed, is just for guys to go into the portal. You can continue to recruit guys out of the portal even into the spring, but you want to have them here for the spring semester so they can be here for spring ball.
So that's basically Jon Manson getting his usher on for a moment. That when Liberty hosts Kennesaw State January 2nd over at and Jacksonville State 2 days later, the January 4th, his head will be spinning with all the transfer portal news, keeping us updated at aseaofred.com. Is that right?
Oh yeah, it's always spinning, and the college football off season is nonstop. It's year round, and you have to be on your toes and ready for news to drop at any moment. That's how it is nowadays in college football, as you know.
So, John, we will not necessarily get to the action taking place tonight over at as Midway and Liberty square off. But Liberty gets ready for Dayton this coming Saturday. Richie McKay will scold you in the press conference and me for not being there and for asking this question if word gets back to him. But we're going to go ahead and just look ahead to Dayton this Saturday, presuming Liberty can handle Midway tonight, 6 p.m. over at What are you looking for out of Liberty in a game that, again, it's not going to make or break their postseason chances? I think we're aware Liberty's in a one big Conference USA, but Dayton's a last opportunity in non-conference play to maybe get some momentum getting ready for the heart of conference action a week after that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good test and a game. It's a home and home series, so Dayton will be coming to the Liberty Arena next year, and that should be a really good game. It's been hard for Coach McKay and the Flames to get quality home dates, and that'll be one. So, but yeah, I mean, they're a top 50 type team in the Ken Palm, maybe top 60 right now, and a team that under head coach Anthony Grant, I'd expect to compete for the A-10. They gave UVA everything they wanted a few weeks ago, and I think they'll be right there in the mix of things in the A-10, and it's a chance for Liberty to get another crack at one of those top 50 type teams. Obviously, NC State I think is closer to top 25, maybe in a Sweet 16 type team this season, and we know how that went last week. So it'll be a chance for Liberty to kind of get that taste out of their mouth and maybe pull off an upset on the road against a good opponent and a team that's likely to be playing into March. And like I said, get that taste out of your mouth, get a little bit more confidence. I mean, this team, going into the game against Midway tonight has lost 3 out of 4. And that strong start at 5-0 and that strong showing at home, early in the season with wins over FAU and Charleston, that seems like a distant memory right now where it felt like, Liberty couldn't miss. And we've talked about it a little bit on AseaRed.com and some of these recent men's basketball coverage of how Liberty, has not performed very well away from home, whereas they've shot the ball very well at home. So Saturday at Dayton will be your last chance in the non-conference to play away from home and to see if you can, have a better shooting night, more reminiscent to what we've seen of the Flames at home so far this season, because conference play starts right after that. You got a game the next week, and that's when it all starts. And you're on the road, starting off conference play on the road December 28th at FIU down in Miami. So you got to be ready to go. And we know, your non-conference play is just the first part of the college basketball season, and the second part of that season starts with conference play, late December. And you've got some Conference USA games. Just a little peek ahead for those that are Conference USA fans, Liberty basketball fans. Starting this week, Wednesday night, you got a game between Kennesaw State and Middle Tennessee and a couple others throughout the week. So those are some games to watch as you're also watching some, bowl games as the bowl season gets underway this week as well, too.
John, it's okay. We're all amongst friends here in the fast lane, but you can get this confession on in a moment and in advance of it. We wrap it up by asking, is there any truth to the rumor that Richie Longshots is going to be flying down to cover the FIU game with you, and that y'all are going to stick around for a New Year's Eve soiree down on South Beach?
I don't think there's any truth to that rumor. Obviously I'm a father and I have to stick close to home whenever the wife says so. And Richie's learning that as well now too. The new proud dad, girl dad as well too. just like myself. And you got to stick close to home. But I have heard rumors that he might make his way from New Jersey to Delaware for a basketball game here in the new year.
Ooh, exciting. Some on-site coverage for a seaofred.com from the venerable and famed Richie Longshots. Jon, to him, of course, we say this, but most importantly to you, to Morgan, and to your lovely girls, Merry Christmas. Have a Happy New Year, and we look forward to chatting with you again as we get into 2026. I had to pause for a moment to remind myself that's the year.
Sounds good. Appreciate you, Ed. Merry Christmas to you and TJ and the rest of the Fast Lane crew.
Always great to chat with Jon Manson, and yes, wishing him a Happy New Year, but before that, a Merry Christmas, as he's there at our spot.
Yo, home, the Bel Air.
Meanwhile, when we return in the Fast Lane, every day is Sunday, at least on the VTR and Sports app with the amount of great play-by-play we have. It's also the title of a book about the NFL and their dominance and how they've continued to have the level of success they've had from a financial standpoint. Slated to discuss that, part of our great gift-giving series idea. You can get a copy of Every Day is Sunday at our friends Givens Books on Lakeside Drive in Lynchburg. The author of the book, Ken Belson, slated to step into the Fast Lane next. 93.3 FM and the VTRN Sports app.
The Wrap Up the Year sales event is going on now at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Drive home a new 2025 Ram 1500 and save over $13,000 off MSRP. Shop Magic City's great selection of Grand Cherokees, now discounted up to $6,300. Don't miss out on the biggest savings of the year. See us today at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 1750 Independence Boulevard in Bedford. MagicCityBedford.com. See dealer for details and 1526.
Hi, I'm Chuck from Aquatrack Adventures in Salem. The Virginia Talk Radio Network and InsaneRadioDeals.com have helped our company grow by sharing our company's message throughout Central and Southside Virginia. The gift cards and experiences sold on InsaneRadioDeals.com have brought us many new customers. If you're a business that wants to grow with a message that resonates and gets results, I highly recommend InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Simply put, it works.
Hi, Danny from Givens Books Little Dickens. We believe in reading and play and in shopping locally for stronger communities. 3 times more jobs are created by local businesses versus online sales. This holiday season, live local and shop local for a better Central Virginia.
Hey, this is Jake with Western Ways in Forest. Shop our thousands of pairs of boots in store with personalized customer service and excellent pricing. Shop Western Ways this holiday season. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's from our family to yours.
We wish you a lot of savings. We wish you a lot of savings. We wish you a lot of savings and great discounts. Now through December 24th at InsaneRadioDeals.com, when you use promo code Christmas, that's promo code Christmas at checkout, get 24% off all items at InsaneRadioDeals.com, including gift cards to the Yard on 5th Street, Downtown Cairo, Oliver's on Rivermont, and much more. 24% off all items when you use promo code Christmas at checkout now through December 24th at InsaneRadioDeals.com.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Every day is Sunday on the VTRN Sports app because we have so many great games, including tonight a doubleheader. Spurs, Knicks, NBA regular season cup, and then after that, it's the Salute to Veterans Bowl. Troy and Jacksonville State. VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker open VTRN Sports, your home for some of the best play-by-play, which does include plenty when the National Football League resumes this Thursday night. Big showdown. Rams versus the Seahawks. So many games. Just keep it locked to Fast Lane, Ed Lane, and VTRN Sports on our social media platforms for the schedules each day as we drop them. Part of that mammoth success for the NFL is the fact they seem to have the right business attitude and approach. Somebody who has chronicled that in his book, Every Day is Sunday, and joins us now in the Fast Lane, Ken Belson, author of that great book. Ken, great to be speaking with you. I'm excited to be in the early stages of this, particularly Paul Tagliabue and Gene Upshaw and what they have been able to accomplish or were able to accomplish, getting the salary cap instituted, labor peace for the NFL, and the fact that it set off this trajectory. Overall, though, how much of this goes back to the NFL owner's vision really crystallizing in that era as well, which is they're never seemingly satisfied with success and sources of revenue. They're always looking for more.
Yeah, the NFL's like a shark. It has to kind of keep moving to survive. These owners are impatient at some level. They have big bills to pay. The owners that I focused on the front of the book, Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft, both paid record amounts for their teams. Those teams were terrible at that time financially and on the field, and they had to make money back. I think there's a big difference, and there always has been, between the owners who inherited their teams and those that had to buy into the league. And the ones who inherited their teams, still the Giants, the Steelers, the Bears, everything's paid for. Their mortgage is paid off. They don't have the big bills. Everything after that is gratis. They see themselves more or less as stewards, as trusts for the NFL. The other guys are hungry. They need money. They have debts and bills to pay. And they're businessmen. They came in, they're hungry for business deals. That's what they do. That's how they got enough money to buy an NFL team in the first place.
Kim Belson, author of Every Day is Sunday. Great book on the NFL. We encourage our listeners to head to Givens Books on Lakeside Drive in Lynchburg to get a copy of that book. It's a wonderful gift for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Or for a sports fan who's or a business person that you know in your life and would love to learn more about that. You mentioned Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft. What's it like being wined and dined by Robert Kraft or being on Jerry's chopper? Were they spraying champagne and lavishing you with caviar and expensive lobster and steak?
No, nothing like it. I had breakfast with Robert Kraft. He had some bagels and some snacks. And Jerry's helicopter is indeed a helicopter. I was in his hangar out at Love Field. He's got a couple of jets with the star logo on the back tail. And but yeah, I'm not in their homes very often. But, I also don't want gifts from them. I want to be an independent journalist, so that's important. But, in a lot of ways, they're human. They're quirky. They have their ways about them. Robert Kraft certainly is that way. He sits behind a big old desk in his office. He drinks Dunkin' Donuts coffee, just like everybody else, in a big styrofoam cup. They're people. Now, they have billions of dollars, so their problems are not exactly our problems. But at their core, they're basically just like you and I in that they want to win football games. They love their teams, obviously. But, they're also taking phone calls from Rupert Murdoch and other billionaires, too.
So you bring up actually a really fascinating point about drinking coffee like regular people. The story I had heard, and I don't know if you've heard this in your covering of different sports, is Ken Belson is with us here in the Fast Lane, author and journalist. But Mickey Harrison, the Miami Heat owner, that he'll still bend over to pick up loose change if he sees it on the street. How much of that mindset, or what you mentioned with Robert Kraft, drinking regular coffee like anybody else as opposed to needing the most expensive of insert your stuff here, is the fact that these people did not become billionaires and sustain their billionaire lifestyle by throwing money away, but they got there and maintained it by being very wise at every opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a quote in the book from Frank Hawkins, who was a longtime lawyer for the NFL. And Robert Kraft, he said, told him, manage it like you own it. So in other words, and he's told this apparently to Roger Goodell many times, this is your business. Understand the bottom line. Don't just throw things away frivolously. It's kind of an ethic almost. Of course, they live lavishly, and it sounds odd because these guys all have private jets and yachts and homes in 5 and 6 and 7, 8 cities. But they didn't get to where they got by throwing money, good money after bad money. So yeah, and that's the way the league is managed too in a lot of ways. There's a deal pending right now between NFL Network and ESPN. And one of the reasons the NFL is happy to offload the NFL Network to ESPN is they don't have to be in the business of producing TV anymore. It'll save them tens of millions of dollars a year by letting ESPN. That's what ESPN's good at. Let them run the studios. Let them do the camera work. Let them go get the talent and all that kind of stuff. The NFL doesn't need to be in that business. So that was one of their motivations for that merger.
Ken Belson hanging out with us today in the Fast Lane. We are at Fast Lane Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram to connect with us. Ken is joining us. His book is available at great bookstores, including our partner, Givens Books on Lakeside Drive in Lynchburg. competitiveness. How much of this success is this reasonable? People think of the players being competitive. Are the owners even more cutthroat and competitive?
Oh, absolutely. And there's jealousy too, right? Robert Kraft is both admired and people are jealous. I mean, he's got 6 Super Bowl trophies in his office next door in his headquarters. So yeah, they're jealous. What did he do to do this? There must be a formula that they all want to win. They're competitive in their own businesses. David Tepper, $24 billion, I think he's worth, hedge fund. That guy does not like to lose. And yet it's taken him, 8 years to have a winning team? They're 7-7 at the moment. So these guys didn't get it in just to hang on to an asset. They want to win. They live and die each weekend like a lot of their fans. But they have businesses. They have to be dispassionate about certain things. They have to let players go that some fans may prefer to keep, or vice versa. They're businessmen at the heart, and it's a tough game to play. You see Jerry Jones; he often gets criticized for being the general manager and the owner, and that is it's a really tough thing to do 2 jobs like that. It's hard enough doing one of them. And that, Cowboys have not been in the NFC Championship game in 30 years. So maybe there's reason for criticism.
Yeah, I mean, you could certainly say that. Our own TJ Wilkerson is nodding since he's a big Cowboys fan at that, Ken. One comment that I had heard from a player once, and it was about the difference between millionaires, players, plenty of them are in that category, and billionaires. That's a much more rarefied air. Is that to be a billionaire, you kind of have to be okay, pardon my language here, but screwing over other people sometimes, or doing something that's really cutthroat in the name of what's in your business's best interest. You've been around these owners before. You've been around NFL owners. Is that a fair and reasonable characterization?
I would say so. I mean, it's rough and tumble, right? If you're not going to make the money somebody else is, there's different ways you can do that. I mean, Dan Snyder, the old owner of the Commanders, he got a really bad name. I mean, he was the first owner to charge a visiting team to park their team buses at the stadium. There's money to be made, and then there's money to be to be raked in. And several owners told me that if the owners wanted to make 2x, Dan would want to make 3x. Why leave money on the table? Let's take it all. I think the owners, though, know the NFL is a different kind of business. And, there's no utility in bankrupting CBS, right? They need CBS. They're one of their longtime partners. NBC, pick a network. So there are some owners, Robert Kraft being one of them, who wants to win, but he wants to win-win. He wants NBC and CBS to have something out of it because they need each other at the end of the day. There's only so many networks out there. Some owners are willing to leave money on the table. Others want to take it with both hands.
All right. That means I have to ask the question. You mentioned the Dan Snyder reference. This is red meat to our audience in Virginia. Did you ever interview Dan Snyder for this? And if you did he ever demand that you call him Mr. Snyder?
I did not interview him for the book because he was being pushed out of the league or was exiting the league when I was starting the book. But I did interview him a couple of years earlier, and it was an awkward interview. He was trying very hard to sound sort of relaxed, but he didn't come across that way necessarily. And I don't know what he's like, in his living room. I've never been in his living room or anything like that, his house. But yeah, he was kind of prickly, certainly with the media over the years, and New York Times included. So, but I was not like one of the local media guys, the Washington Post, the Baltimore Sun, other newspapers in the DC metro area. They had to deal with him on a daily basis. Very different, because he would lash out at the media, which is really a losing strategy, because the old adage, you don't fight with somebody who has gallons of ink to spill, and so the media can turn against you, and certainly in Snyder's case, he gave him a lot of ammunition.
So there's an interesting element to this as well. We've touched on the idea of billionaires, and the Commanders sale is part of that, where the franchise valuations have increased. We've seen more limited partners, private equity even entering into the NFL discussion over the last handful of years. Are these transactions, the minority stakes, is this really just free franchise valuations that are being done for each of these franchises by selling off minority stakes? Or is there something to the idea that maybe private equity comes in on a much larger scale?
Yeah, the NFL has been very conservatively run, and it certainly has been with the entry of private equity. The other leagues have allowed up to 30% ownership of teams from private equity. The NFL only allows 10%. And, the numbers are bigger, too. 10% of an NFL team might be 30% of an NBA team. But, I think there's also this idea, like, let's just see how this works first. It's complicated with LPs, with limited partners. They have no voting rights, but they could do other things. They might go off the rails in some other way. So you want steady partners who are going to stick around. In their case, the private equity guys, I mean, they obviously see what's happening. We the Panthers went for $2.3 billion in 2018. A couple of years later, 3-4 years later, you got the the Broncos go for $4.5 billion. Then a couple of years later, you got the Commanders go for $6 billion. They see where the numbers are going. So even owning that 10%, when they flip it, is they're hoping to appreciate quite a double, maybe triple their money. But then there's all this other stuff that goes on. These teams now have become real estate developers. They're building homes. You look down in Nashville, their stadium they're putting up. There's part of real estate all around the stadium. And so these private equity guys are looking at teams not just as franchises, but as brands, as teams that are going to generate other kinds of money that they could potentially take a stake in.
Ken Belson, this is the book to look for when you go to Givens Books on Lakeside Drive in Lynchburg. Every day is Sunday. We're putting it up there for our visually inclined audience at Fastlane, Edlane, and VTR in Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube. When you look back on the NFL and how it's grown to where it is today, is one of the most underrated crux points this: if Jerry Jones wanted to treat it like George Steinbrenner treated the Yankees in Major League Baseball, no salary cap, we have the biggest budget, we'll outspend you, that decision to not fight that way by Jerry Jones may have been one of the biggest things that's helped the NFL literally rising tide, lifting all boats in the NFL to where they are clearly the number one sport in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry was never going to win that argument. It's interesting. He was on the stand in 2024 in an antitrust trial involving Sunday Ticket, and he said, "Look, I'm not against everybody sharing all that TV money together, 32 ways equally. So the Packers get the same media money that the Cowboys do. But when it comes to selling the Cowboys in Texas, I want to be able to sell as much as I can sell because that's my hardcore fan base." And he's hoping that everybody else did it. He broke the ice and did that. So there are pockets where owners can maximize their own revenue on their own, but still very much it's a socialist collective where about 62% of the revenue they receive, the league's revenue, is shared. And that's far more than almost any other league. NBA, it's 40% of their media money is shared equally. So the NFL, Jim Irsay, the late owner of the Colts, told me, he said owning an NFL team would be like flying a 747 on autopilot. And money's coming in. Nobody loses money in the NFL. It's a question of how much they make.
Last one for Ken Belson. The book is Every Day is Sunday, available at bookstores, including our preferred one, Givens Books on Lakeside Drive in Lynchburg. That being this, of things that could happen over the next 10 years, we've seen the fracturing of college athletics in the direction it's gone. Any inkling that maybe the NFL would want to take an even bigger stand in that? Not necessarily from ownership and liability, because that would mean extra costs, but having a direction in how that goes to farm talent and seeing that there may be one big split that's the revenue generating opportunity. And we know the NFL never passes that up.
It's complicated. If they get too involved with college, there's antitrust concerns. They already are a monopoly in the professional space, more or less. Getting into college, that's a wall they don't want to go over. They also have a really good deal. I mean, they're the only sport pretty much which doesn't have to pay for the development of athletes. It's all done through the college and high school and college collegiate system. And the NFL, why would they want to get too involved? Obviously, they are involved on sharing rules, data, things like that, but they don't want to get their hand. First of all, and the other thing is college football now is such a mess. Why would they want to stick their necks out and be on the front end of that? So, no, I don't think they're going to get much more involved with that. The other thing is broadcast is, pretty much Friday night is high school, college is Saturdays, Sunday is given to the NFL, professional football. They don't want to start crossing over too much. Then you get Congress looking into it. There's too many problems with that.
There it is, Ken Belson. What great insight and perspective. Again, his book, Every Day is Sunday. Get it wherever you get books, including our preferred spot, Givens Books, Lakeside Drive in Lynchburg. This is what the book looks like for all the audience watching at Fastlane, Ed Lane, and VTR in Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube. Ken, thank you for your time today in the Fast Lane. Wishing you and yours a wonderful holiday season, and would love to connect again.
Absolutely, at any time.
Ken Belson with us here in the Fast Lane. Fascinating book and a fascinating read. And again, I'm in the early stages of reading that and look forward to getting more into that over the holiday season with, I will call it my holiday reading slate. Meanwhile, when we return in the Fast Lane, Bob Alvis, high school football takeaways from the championship weekend for schools like LCA, Heritage, and JF. We'll get to that next here in the Fast Lane.
Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Holiday savings have started, and this is your last chance to save. Shop local and save more with straightforward pricing, plus exceptional service and selection. Stop the search. Head to the Motor Mile for over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, and a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you choices, more than any other dealer in the area. Sheeler owns the finance company. We make it easy to buy with in-house financing. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume. 11 new car brands, over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. Our biggest sale of the year is here. The Red Tag year-end sales event at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com. But hurry, this sale ends when the new year begins.
Want an outdoor oasis? The Concrete Wizard can restore and revitalize your pool deck or patio. After the Concrete Wizard works the magic, your old, tired concrete will look new again. For pool decks, the Concrete Wizard can install a safe, innovative rubber surfacing option that's slip-resistant, soft, and easy on the feet. A great choice for families and anyone concerned about safety. Visit theconcretewizard.com for some ideas, then contact them today for a free consultation to create your perfect outdoor oasis.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Living and learning. You could describe life that way as we welcome you back into the Fast Lane. But there's also some learning lessons from postseason play. High school football, we'll get some with the college football playoff Friday night, and then Saturday, part of our 5-game slate. We've got 2 NFL games interwoven in this Saturday. But one of the things that's always stood out to me in that particular situation has been when you're in postseason play, there is the added incentive to keep your foot on the accelerator. So the margin can often get a lot wider than it normally would in certain circumstances. Not necessarily running the score up per se, but just keeping things as much as possible so that the outcome is not in doubt. Now, there are different ways to have gotten there, but it's one of the things that kind of jumped out observing what transpired in the 1A through 6A VHSL high school football playoffs this past weekend. So, for perspective on that, as we finally get a chance to put a bow on the on-field action before turning our attention to the offseason and other sports in the winter and spring, Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast, back with us once again in the Fast Lane. Bob, since it's our final chat here in 2025, first of all, thank you for being a part of the Fast Lane. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and happy New Year to you and yours. Are we on base that a lot of times, particularly what we saw this past weekend, when you have a chance to step on somebody's proverbial throat in the sports sense, there's every incentive to do that in a postseason game, especially with the championship on the line, which might be a part of the reason why 5 of the 6 state championships over the weekend, all but the 4A or all but the 3A one, were blowouts.
Happy holidays to you. And hey, I hope you have a great Festivus, because that's always important so we can air our grievances. You know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but in 1A to 6A this past weekend, the margin was greater than the weekend before, which featured twice the games because you had the state semifinals. So, you know, I don't know if it's anybody's fault per se, but you just happen to have a lot of games this week it did not go the way of Lane's Lines, maybe, or whoever thought, these games would be close, because you want a championship game to be close. You don't want the dessert in the Final Four. You want the dessert in the national championship game, not the national semifinals. But that's kind of what we had. We had dessert 2 weekends ago, and this week we had I don't know what we had. Cat food?
Yeah. Second helping, reaching into the bag to grab a couple more when it probably wasn't the wisest idea. Although it's always wise to be playing championship games, and kudos to the teams that won the championship. From the two teams that made it to the semifinals, LCA, and you could probably put Heritage in this category as well because of how close that loss was to LCA in the state quarters. How much have they got to be sitting there, maybe stewing a little bit more inside, knowing that, if you have a chance to get through, maybe you would have had a chance in that game, which was a thriller in Class 3, Lake Taylor, and a multi-overtime victory to win the state championship this past weekend against Kettle Run.
Yeah, I thought about Kettle Run a lot this weekend, because I'm like, man, Heritage and LCA both lost to this team, and they lost in the state finals in double overtime. And I know Heritage feels sick about the way the season ended. I have a pretty good notion LCA feels sick about the way season ended, but I don't know if you can feel more sick about losing a state title game in double overtime to win. For some people, like we brought up before, that's not a season ender. That's a career ender too. And gosh, what a sick feeling that had to have been on Saturday at Williams Stadium. But I take solace in this. In 1A, in 2A, in 3A, in 4A, in 5A, and 6A, there were two teams left. So even if you're the team that got spanked on Saturday, you were one of two teams left in the state championship. And I know a lot of people will complain and say, well, we should have been there playing the state semifinals where the true state championship, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, let's take it that way. You were one of four teams left. That is quite an accomplishment, because I can tell you this. There are a lot of people that would love to be in that predicament.
No doubt. There absolutely are. I mean, there are plenty of teams that would. Everyone knows LCA. They've won two state championships prior to this season, 2 in a row in 23 and 24. So, they've had those experiences themselves, as painful as it is for the way the season ended for the Bulldogs. Meanwhile, for Jefferson Forest, again, not to say that they're moral victories, but, seeing what Varina did to Loudoun County, is it reasonable to think, hey, if JF, this was always going to be the end. It just was a matter of when JF lost to Varina, but inevitably Varina left no doubt they were the best team in Class 4A.
Varina ended up being the end for a lot of people this year. I mean, Dinwiddie was really, really good, and they've had a really, really good run. And I want to say Varina beat them something like 34-0. So, I mean, Varina ended a lot of people's hopes, dreams. I don't want to say dynasties, but, Varina kind of put the old proverbial foot on the throat to a lot of people. So I don't know how terrible you can feel in the fact of, hey, we got beat by a team that won a state title. I always look at it as, man, if we lose to the team that won the state title, that makes us look even better.
No doubt. And I would say there's some merit to that. And I mean, having seen what Varina did in the state championship game, and having seen JF the weekend before, it looked like JF, again, they were never going to beat Varina, but gave them a better game in my observation, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely argue that. And I mean, JF, again, had the task of going there to where Varina was playing on a neutral field. Now, I can argue if JF had been the state title against Varina, it would have been more of a home game for JF than it would have been Varina. But it's not playing at Sabre Stadium. It's playing at Williams Stadium. But I don't think JT Cruz and the Cavaliers, Frank Rocco and the Bulldogs, Brad Bradley and the Pioneers, or anybody can hang their head about how the season ended. It's just motivation for coming back next season.
Bob Alvis of the Sports Buffet podcast with us here in the Fast Lane. Bob, we'll have plenty of time to talk football throughout the entire, we'll call it off season for us, even though a lot of these teams get back to work with strength and conditioning once the calendar turns to 2026. We also have time to get into some of the postponed games like Heritage and EC Glass in basketball, that now there will be two games in a fairly tight window in the mid to late January slate. But in the short term, JF, coming off that loss to Liberty this past Friday night in boys basketball, they get ready to host LCA. Is that more of a must-win game tonight, or is Liberty trying to validate their hot start when they battle EC Glass, a different kind of must-win?
I don't know that anything is a must-win, because I've used that terminology before to high school coaches, and I get looked at like I have 10 heads when I bring up the term must-win. I think it's a really want to win because we really don't want to fall down. And for me, with high school sports, I look at it as kids' confidence can get shaken very easily. And I think losses shake the confidence more than, hey, we had a bad night shooting, or hey, we had a bad night swinging the bat, or hey, we had a bad night in the backfield. But I think when you get into wins and losses, those are more confidence shakers than individual performances. I think JF, and they did beat LCA last year, so keep that in mind. But the Seminole District, I feel like after you get past maybe one or two, I feel like it's a proverbial snow globe. See what I did right there, holiday season? So we're going to bring it all together because I feel like sometimes you can shake things up, and a team that maybe you should beat, if JF should have beaten Liberty, and Liberty's on the rise, by the way. John McSweeney's doing really good things out there in Bedford with that group. But, I feel like the snow globe got shook last week, and wow, Liberty really was on top of the snow globe after the game was over.
It had that type of feeling. Meanwhile, not only for Liberty boys basketball, but for Liberty girls basketball as well. They've had a lot of success the last couple of years. How much does that get validated based on what they did to Jefferson Forest and the fact that, again, there's a lot of Seminole District action still to go, but that was a nice start for the Lady Minutemen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good squad that Justin Waldron has out there. It's very different because Liberty only has a varsity team this year. They do not have a junior varsity team, but they've got one of the better players around back in Shania Brown. Shania Brown's just hard to work around because she's got such a frame that presents a lot of problems in the post at the high school girls basketball level. She can shoot, she can move. So I think it's going to be hard for people to get past that because you're going to have to figure out, hey, do we want to have Shania get 25 and everybody else gets bupkis, or everybody else gets however much they want and Shania gets bupkis?
Yeah, it's a real confounding thing for a lot of coaches, but it really puts the Liberty Lady Minutemen in a fascinating spot as the season gets going. We're not even close to being able to touch on every single team that gets ready for basketball action, Bob. We will do that when we return for the new year. In the meantime, we want to say again, thank you for being a part of the Fast Lane, for joining us. We'll have a lot of Dogwood and Seminole District boys and girls basketball action, among other sports, to discuss in 2026. And we do look forward to that after we hope you and yours enjoy a Merry Christmas and a happy start to the new year.
I'm going to start really breaking down your interviews with Radcliffe and Teal and people like that to see how many times they use the word bupkis over me. But Ed, it's always been a pleasure. It looks to be more of a pleasure in 2026 as I will make sure that I do not have too much eggnog or the sleigh does not fall off the roof this holiday season.
My kids would be indebted to you if it does not fall off the roof because it might crush their dreams to see Santa in a precarious situation, having to clean up all the gifts that fall down from the roof and make a ruckus. Not to mention the neighbors might not be too happy about that either.
Agree, 100%.
Bob Alvis with us here in the Fast Lane. Bob, thank you for your time. We'll chat again in the new year.
Yes, sir.
Bob Alvis with us here to wrap up the Fast Lane today. We appreciate your time. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you missed anything and want to weigh in, we're back not Wednesday, but Thursday afternoon at 5. Thanks for listening to the Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227 BG Timberlake, and 1320 AM, WVGM Lynchburg.
I'm Christine Lisi with Thursday's crucial NFC West showdown against the Seahawks looming. The Rams are still hoping receiver Devontae Adams will be able to play at Seattle. Adams, who aggravated his left hamstring injury in the win over Detroit, did not practice today.